He gave voice to the cubicle bound. He coined one of the most quoted workplace punchlines of the modern era. And even as controversy chased him in his later years, he never stopped speaking his mind. Today, we remember a man whose life was as layered as the characters he drew. Scott Adams. That's how many will recall the creator of Dilbert, not just for laughter, but for the cultural conversations his work ignited. Scott Adams has died at 68. Scott Adams was an American cartoonist, author, and provocateur whose satirical comic strip Dilbert became a cultural touchstone for millions of office workers around the world. Debuting in 1989, Dilbert skewered cubicle life, office politics, clueless bosses, and corporate absurdity with a dry wit that resonated deeply with readers. At its peak, the strip appeared in more than 2,000 newspapers globally, inspiring books, animated adaptations, and even management jargon like the Dilbert Principle. But that career, filled with laughter and insight, was only part of the story. Adams' later years were marked by controversy, outspoken commentary, and a public battle with illness one he faced with candor and resolve. Scott Adams passed away on January 13, 2026, at age 68, after a courageous but ultimately losing battle with metastatic prostate cancer, a disease he had publicly disclosed in May 2025. Unlike many public figures who keep health struggles private, Adams chose transparency. On his daily livestream Real Coffee with Scott Adams, he shared his diagnosis with viewers, describing how the cancer had spread, how it changed his life, and how he accepted the likely outcome. In the final weeks of his life, his health declined sharply. He entered hospice care at his home in Northern California, surrounded by close friends and family who supported him around the clock. Despite facing paralysis and heart complications, he continued to record and engage with his audience until nearly the very end. His passing was announced by his first ex-wife, Shelley Miles, on a live stream of his show. She read aloud a heartfelt final message Adams had written on January 1, 2026, a reflection that served as his last words to the community he built. In that message, Adams wrote, "I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you got any benefits from my work, I'm asking that you pay it forward as best you can. That's the legacy I want. Be useful, and please know I loved you all till the very end." Those words reflect something central to his worldview in his final years, a focus on usefulness, connection, and influence, values he believed mattered more than fame or controversy. It's impossible to summarize Scott Adams without talking about Dilbert. The comic strip captured the frustrations and absurdities of corporate life in a way that few others did. Characters like the pointy-haired boss, Wally, Alice, Asak, Cadbert, and of course Dilbert himself became household names. Adams' humor wasn't just entertainment, it became a mirror for workers stuck in bureaucracy, giving voice to the universal experience of feeling undervalued or misunderstood at work. Dilbert wasn't just a comic strip, it was a social commentary that shaped workplace culture in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. He also authored best-selling books such as How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big and Win Bigly, blending humor with insights on life, work, and persuasion. However, his legacy was complicated. Adams courted controversy in the years before his death, particularly after making remarks interpreted as racist in 2023, which led many newspapers to drop Dilbert from their pages and publishers to sever ties. Despite this, he maintained a loyal audience and continued creating content, reinventing his platform, and engaging in cultural debates until the end. Scott Adams' life was more than comics and controversy. He was a thinker who explored persuasion, personal development, and cultural critique. To some, he was a groundbreaking artist who gave voice to modern office life. To others, he became a polarizing figure whose outspoken views overshadowed his creative achievements. Yet his final message emphasized connection over conflict and appeal to be useful, to care for others, and to leave the world a bit better than we found it. Scott Adams didn't just draw Dilbert. He held up a lens to the everyday absurdities of work and life. He provoked, entertained, challenged, and inspired. And at the end, he reminded us that life's worth isn't measured by who agrees with you but by the impact you leave behind.